Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
There's a moment in every great sporting career where the curtain falls, and most of the time it falls quietly. A press conference, a statement on social media, a polite round of applause at a benefit dinner years after anyone really cared. That is not how Ben Stokes does things. Ben Stokes ended his England career mid-spell, mid-test, mid-sentence almost, with the ball still warm in his hand and Trent Bridge holding its collective breath. And when he finally stood in front of his teammates to explain himself, he didn't talk about legacy or trophies or 15 years of sacrifice. He talked about one more trip to the well. Today, we're unpacking exactly what that means, exactly what led to it, and exactly why this retirement closes out one of the most extraordinary, chaotic, brilliant careers English cricket has ever produced. Let's start with the words themselves, because if you want to understand who Ben Stokes really is, underneath the headlines and the highlight reels, you need to hear what he actually said in that England dressing room before the fourth day at Trent Bridge. Visibly emotional, voice-catching captain to the very last, Stokes gathered his players and told them this: "The reasons can wait, but I've had many trips to the well before for this team, for you blokes, for people beforehand, and I've got one more trip to do." Think about the imagery there. A well. Something you draw from again and again until eventually, inevitably, there's nothing left to pull up. Stokes is telling his teammates, in the most honest way he knows how, that he has given absolutely everything, repeatedly, for years, and this final test is the very last bucket he has in him. And then, because leadership for Ben Stokes has never been about himself, he turned the moment outward. "The only thing that I ask, please, is can everyone do the same?" he said. Not asking for tributes, not asking for a guard of honour, although he'd get two of them anyway. He was asking his players to match his effort one final time in the biggest test of the summer. "We've got a lot of hard work to do, and the only thing I want is to be able to walk off that field, regardless of the result. Knowing that I've had this group give everything for the last 2 days." Read that again, regardless of the result. This isn't a man obsessed with departing as a champion. This is a man obsessed with departing knowing his team fought to the very last ball, win, lose or draw. "That's the only thing I want, for everyone to give it, not only for me, selfishly, but also for this team." And then, almost like flipping a switch, the emotion gets boxed away and the captain takes over one final time. "I've got the emotional side out of it. Now it's time to go to work. Please, everyone else come with me." If you ever wondered what made Ben Stokes the player and leader he became, that speech is the answer in 60 seconds. Selfless to the point of self-erasure, even in the one moment of his career that was, by definition, entirely about him. Now let's rewind, because the staging of how this news actually broke deserves repeating, because it might be the single most ridiculous, perfect, impossible to script moment in recent English sporting history. Stokes told his teammates of the decision before the fourth day's play began. He then went out and bowled, not a token over or two, 11 unchanged overs across the session between lunch and tea, fielding at mid-off in between, hauling his team back into a test match he already knew would be his last involvement in international cricket. At 3:25 p.m, with Stokes having just completed his 10th successive over since lunch, a statement rippled out across the cricket world confirming what his teammates already knew. And then, with the very next ball he bowled after that statement landed, Ben Stokes had Zak Foulkes caught behind at second slip by his own heir apparent, vice-captain Harry Brook. The ground didn't just cheer. It detonated. You could not, in 1,000 attempts, write a more theatrically perfect final act than the man retiring and taking a wicket in the same breath. From there, the day became something closer to a coronation than a cricket session. Stokes led his players off at tee to a thunderous standing ovation. With friends and family watching from the stands, both England and New Zealand formed guards of honour as play resumed for the evening session, opposition players setting aside rivalry to acknowledge a genuine great of the game walking through their ranks one final time. And then, because Ben Stokes does not know how to do anything the easy way, he promoted himself to open the batting in the run chase, hit a typically violent 30 from just 20 deliveries, and was caught by Daryl Mitchell off Foulkes' bowling. No fairy tale century, no storybook finish, just Ben Stokes swinging hard until the very last ball of his international career, exactly as he'd played every other ball before it. So, what is he actually leaving behind? Let's properly take stock, because the scale of this career deserves more than a passing mention in a retirement headline. There is 2019, the year that turned Ben Stokes from a brilliant cricketer into a genuine national icon. His extraordinary innings of 84 helped England win the Cricket World Cup for the very first time, defeating New Zealand in a final so dramatic, so impossibly tense, that it's still widely regarded as the greatest game of cricket ever played. And as if that wasn't enough for one summer, just 6 weeks later, Stokes produced one of the single greatest individual performances English cricket has ever witnessed, an unbeaten 135 against Australia at Headingley in the third Ashes Test, dragging his team to an almost impossible victory virtually single-handedly. That summer earned him the BBC Sports Personality of the Year award, a rare honour for a cricketer, and one that reflected just how far his impact had spread beyond the boundaries of the sport itself. Add to that a starring role in England's triumphant 2022 T20 World Cup campaign, and you have a man with genuine claims to being involved in not one but multiple white ball world titles, on top of an Ashes win and a Test captaincy spanning 44 matches. The raw numbers are almost unfair to recite. 7,273 Test runs, 252 Test wickets. Only two men in the entire history of the sport have ever managed a comparable double: the legendary Sir Garfield Sobers of the West Indies and South Africa's Jacques Kallis. Ben Stokes now sits permanently in that company. Throw in the fact that his 136 sixes is an outright Test cricket record, and you start to understand why English cricket fans are going to spend the next decade arguing about where exactly he ranks among the greatest all-rounders the game has ever seen. But the numbers, as extraordinary as they are, only tell half the story. The other half is Bazball, the word that didn't exist in cricket's vocabulary before Stokes and Brendan McCullum got their hands on a struggling England Test side in 2022. At the point Stokes took over the captaincy, England had won precisely one of their previous 17 Test matches, a genuinely dismal run that had fans and pundits openly questioning the future of the format in this country. What Stokes and McCullum built from those Ashes was nothing short of a revolution. Fearless, attacking, occasionally reckless cricket that prioritised entertainment and intent over the cautious, risk-averse approach that had defined English Test cricket for years. The results were immediate and astonishing. England won 10 of their first 11 Tests under the new regime. A transformation so rapid and so complete that it reshaped how Test cricket itself was discussed and played around the world. Stokes won almost 56% of his 43 Tests in charge, the best success rate of any England captain in 45 years, a genuinely remarkable statistic that places him among the most successful leaders this country has ever had. But here's where the story gets more complicated, because Bazball's bravado, for all its brilliance against most opposition, occasionally buckled when it mattered most. England had to fight back from 2-0 down just to draw the home Ashes Series 2-2 in 2023, denying Australia outright victory but falling short of the result this team was built to deliver. The following winter brought a chastening 4-1 defeat in India, a tour that exposed real questions about whether the all-out attacking method could succeed against the very best sides on their own turf. To their credit, Stokes and McCullum didn't retreat from the challenge. They doubled down, rebuilding the team with one eye on beating India at home in 2025 and the other on reclaiming the Ashes in Australia. The plan even included pushing England's all-time record wicket-taker, James Anderson, into retirement, a brutal but calculated decision designed to refresh the attack for the battles ahead. The results, unfortunately, didn't follow the script. England could only draw 2-2 with India at home, then suffered a heavy 4-1 defeat in Australia, a tour that will be remembered for far more than the cricket itself. Because that Ashes tour was dogged painfully by accusations of a drinking culture within the squad, serious enough that a midnight curfew was imposed on the players. And in one of the cruelest twists of this entire saga, the very curfew designed to address those concerns is the one Stokes himself broke in his first match back following that Ashes tour, the infamous London nightclub incident that cost him his place for the second test against New Zealand this summer. It's almost impossible to overstate how much that single moment has shaped the narrative of these past few weeks and how directly it connects back to a tour that was already troubled before Stokes ever walked into that club. And here's the thing about Ben Stokes that this retirement forces us to confront properly. This is not the first time off-field controversy has defined a chapter of his career. Back in 2017, Stokes was involved in an incident outside a Bristol nightclub that led to him being charged with affray. He was cleared the following summer, but the episode cost him a place on the 2017-18 Ashes tour and cast a long shadow over his early years as one of England's most talented cricketers. In 2021, the weight of everything, cricket, scrutiny, personal tragedy, became too much, and Stokes stepped away from the game entirely to prioritise his mental health, a genuinely landmark moment for honesty around mental well-being in professional sport. A documentary released the following year laid bare just how much the Bristol incident, combined with the death of his father Ged, had taken from him privately while he continued performing as one of the most scrutinised athletes in the country. Layer on top of that a brutal run of injuries, a left knee problem that limited his bowling through 2023 and 2024, and most recently a broken cheekbone suffered, almost absurdly, while coaching the Durham Academy rather than facing the world's fastest bowlers. He returned from that injury to lead England to victory in the first test of this New Zealand series at Lord's, only to miss the second entirely because of the nightclub fallout. And even then, the off-field chaos wasn't finished. Stokes and fellow bowler Gus Atkinson were both present during an incident in which a member of England's security staff was struck by a Saracens rugby player. Another bizarre footnote in an already extraordinary summer. Both players were eventually cleared to return for this third test in Nottingham, with Stokes telling the media beforehand that he had apologised personally to his teammates, while pointedly declining to confirm whether he'd felt supported by the England and Wales Cricket Board throughout the process. Read between those lines however you like. It's against that entire backdrop, the scandals, the injuries, the grief, the unrelenting scrutiny, that Stokes' comments about the captaincy itself become so revealing. Speaking to the BBC before this test even began, long before anyone outside his inner circle knew retirement was imminent, Stokes posed himself a question he admitted he'd never properly been able to answer. The England captaincy is one of those things where I'm 35 now, and even before this stuff all happened, I thought, could I ever see myself playing for England and not being captain? It's a question I've never really been able to answer because it's been such a big part of this part of my career.
You look at others who have stepped away from captaincy and kept playing. I don't really know. I love playing for England. I love being captain of this team, and that's where I'm at with everything.
In the end, Stokes never had to find the answer to that question because the decision he ultimately reached wasn't captain or player. It was everything or nothing at all. For a man who could never quite separate his identity as a cricketer from his identity as England's leader, perhaps that was always going to be the only ending that made sense. not stepping back from the armband while continuing to play, but walking away from both, together in one single, seismic, perfectly Stokes-shaped moment. So what happens now for England? The captaincy succession appears all but settled in the eyes of most observers, with Harry Brook, the very man who took the catch that sealed Stokes' final wicket, strongly expected to be confirmed as the new England Test captain ahead of the next series against Pakistan at Headingley in August. It is in many ways the most fitting symbolic handover imaginable. The student catching the very edge that closed his mentor's bowling career, standing in exactly the position the new captain will need to occupy for years to come. But before any of that, England still have a test to navigate, currently chasing 373 against a rampant New Zealand attack, with their captain already back in the dressing room and his playing days over for good. Whatever happens across the final day at Trent Bridge, the result will forever be a footnote to the bigger story, the day Ben Stokes decided, mid-spell, mid-summer, mid-sentence, that 15 extraordinary years was enough. So tell us, when you think back across this entire career, what's the moment that defines Ben Stokes for you? Is it Headingley 2019, dragging England to an impossible win almost single-handedly? Is it that World Cup final against New Zealand, still argued over as the greatest game cricket has ever produced? Or is it this? The speech in the dressing room, the wicket that landed seconds after the announcement, the guard of honour from his fiercest rivals. Let us know down in the comments. We read every single one. And if Boundary Line UK is your home for everything happening in English cricket, make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a single moment of this story as it reaches its final chapter. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 2,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.